Sandra, welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, so subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So today we're going to be discussing when and how asexuals first discovered they are asexual. And we're going to be reading excerpts from my Asexual Perspectives book. Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month is the month of July, and this is a month we celebrate our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. And the amazing thing about this book is it doesn't just give textbook definitions of asexuality, it shows asexuality in real life context, told through the stories of 46 different asexuals across the globe and asexual spectrum. And the 47th person here is me. So this is really insightful. If you're new to asexuality, want to know more about it, do get a copy of this book. So let's go. So Silji, if you've already got the book, page 49, Silji's story. When did you first discover you are asexual, and how did you discover you are asexual? I first identified as ace a few weeks into my first year of college. I think I always knew I was different, but I wasn't sure in what way. So I picked a label. It was bisexual, if you're curious, and rolled with it, even though it didn't quite fit. A few weeks into my first year, a now very good friend of mine questioned me about my feelings towards sex and relationships. She pushed me to think about things I'd never been asked to think about before, and it helped me figure myself out. So I think that's really good. And I love it when that happens, you know? So that's Silji's story. Then we got Robin's story. When did you first discover you are asexual? When I was 18 years old, reading from Asexual Perspectives, but you can get this book on Amazon, by the way. So Robin discovered they were asexual at 18, and how they discovered it was one of the people I knew continued to make me uncomfortable by making sex jokes. And eventually, when she talked about having sex publicly, I felt uncomfortable to the point I tried to figure out why. I'm trying to figure out why I talked to those who were the two closest people to me at the time, and I came up with possible reasons for it. My feelings were invalidated with, you should just expect two loving people to have sex. It was the first time I was actually aware people had a sexuality, and it made me feel scared. I was scared of thinking about or seeing any couples after that, because it kept on reminding me that they might have sex behind the scenes, and to think that people who appeared to be so innocent on the surface had a sexuality felt so out of place and scary to me. After finding out about asexuality, I chance across the term. Basically, it means they came across a term when someone said something acephobic in public. This person describes someone who sounds like me. So I looked up asexuality up. I joined ACE, short for asexual, forums and talked to ace people, and ended up feeling so much better about myself. I finally felt as if I was allowed to just be me. So yeah, they basically said they chanced across the term, meaning they came across the term when someone said something acephobic, which is like against asexualism. Or asexualism is not really a word that's used, against asexuality, I should say. So I just kind of made asexualism up, I think. But it's not a term that people usually use in the asexual community. So this person said, I chanced across a term when someone said something acephobic. The person described someone who sounded like me, so I looked up asexuality. So it's interesting that the way they found out about it was through acephobia. So usually acephobia is a very bad thing, and it is because it's people who speak badly about asexuality and asexuals. However, the fact that this person came across the term because of acephobia is very interesting, I think. And when this person says about it was first time I was acutely aware people had a sexuality and it made me feel scared, I was scared of thinking about or seeing any couples after that, because it kept on reminding me that they might have sex behind the scenes. And to think that people who appeared to be so innocent on the surface had a sexuality felt so out of place and scary to me. Now, I want to touch base on that a minute, because that's the way I feel about seeing a pregnant woman. Like, I'm pregnancy repulsed, right? And when I see a pregnant woman, to me, it's like advertising that she's had sex with her partner. And it's like, oh, it's like gross to me. It's like really like, yeah. And this is coming from an asexual person, me, who has had sex in the past. When I was in a heterosexual relationship for a long time. And I've also had sex in previous relationships as well. So they've all been within relationships, though, with partners that I thought I was going to be with a long time, even if I wasn't with all of them. So yeah, I'm monogamous, so they were one at a time, not all together. I just feel like really like yucky when I see like the fact, oh, this woman's pregnant and this guy like did that to her, and it's kind of a gross feeling. You know, one is that they're advertising that they had sex with their partner, and two is, did the woman really like that? And some women love having babies, they love it, and other times I think, you know, the guy didn't really use protection, and so he got her pregnant when she would have probably rather have been doing other stuff with her life. Do you know what I mean? That's me giving different views. Like, some people, even the asexual community, they do want children of natural means, and that's great if they really want children and want to have it. But I've come across other women that don't really want a kid, or they don't want more kids, and their partners just basically had unprotected sex with them, and kind of like got them pregnant. If you know what I mean. They've got them pregnant, you know, and it's kind of like they don't feel good about it. You know, either they've got them pregnant and they weren't really interested in a baby in the first place, or they're having more kids than they ever imagined they would. Do you know what I mean? So I think you have to be really careful about that, and always remember that it's your body, not anyone else's. Hi, Asexualise, says Minky. Oh, hi, Minky. It's nice to see you. I've got your story I'm reading out later for this episode, so that's good that you came. I'm reading out a bit later because I thought, oh, if Minky happens to be on this live stream, I read yours out yesterday before you were here. So I thought I'll leave it till later, and then hopefully you should hear it. So it's good. I appreciate you being here. I wasn't sure who was up at 1:44 a.m. in the morning. This is crazy. I had to sleep in the day today. Slept for quite a long time. So yeah, Kenneth Williams' story, Asexual Perspectives book. Get a copy of this if you haven't already. And Minky, who's in chat, is in this book under 5 Mart 2N. So when and how did you discover you were asexual? So Kenneth discovered they're asexual like this. I began identifying as asexual a few months after turning 18. However, I would have earlier if I had known there was a word for how I was feeling. When I was in high school, I understood sex as a concept. However, I didn't know it was okay not to crave it. I didn't understand my friends' need for it, or why it was such a big deal when I said I would never want to have sex with anyone I dated. It's clear to me now that if I had known the word, I would have begun. Oh, it's clear to me now that if I had known the word, I would have begun using it around 14 years of age. Hello, Heather. Nice to see you. Oh, it's 8:44 in Canada right now. You still got some of the night left. Previous day, I'm guessing, because it's Tuesday now, so I'm guessing it's Monday in the Canada. I like doing it at different times because it means different people around the globe can hear me talk. So it's very interesting that Kenneth didn't find out till later on in life, like when they're 18, about the term asexual, but they would have used it when they were 14. So that's like 4 years they didn't know their own identity. And I think that's a difficulty with asexuality, is that for a long time you cannot know that you're asexual. It's like you're living a different life and feel like an alien to everyone else or something like that. I don't know if you understand that feeling. It's kind of like people around you aren't exactly speaking the same language. It's like they're speaking some of the same language because we're humans, but it's kind of like they're on a different wavelength with their mind and the way they think and feel about relationships and sex and stuff like that. So it's kind of like very strange sometimes. I think it's very surreal. I remember as like kid growing up and then teenager, when I lived with my parents at home, I remember just feeling like I was an alien, like I just didn't fit in, and I was like speaking an alien language. And I don't know if that's got anything to do with being asexual, but I didn't realize it back then. I'm guessing it probably has something to do with that. And that's why I think, like, now, I think if you are asexual but don't realize there's a term called asexuality, I think it feels like you're an alien. And like, even now, obviously, when I go back on the dating scene and talk to heterosexual guys on traditional dating sites or dating sites that may incorporate asexuality, like Badoo does, but it's still predominantly heterosexuals on there, it's like speaking a different language. It's like I come into the asexual community, it's quite chilled, and it's good because we can talk about hobbies and interests. There's no sexual tension, no sexual energy, no like pushing for sexual stuff. And it's like, can really relax and chill and be around people who genuinely understand you and care. And it's on a more friendship and mutual respect level and care. But when you go on like dating sites with heterosexuals, it's like, oh my God, sometimes it's like a pack of wolves coming after you for sex. Sometimes it's like an eagle landing to pick you for sex. I don't know how to describe it. I'm trying to be quite vivid in my analogies here, because it really does feel like that sometimes. It does to me anyway. It feels like, oh my God, this is just like I'm a piece of meat or something. This is pretty gross. You know what I mean? And not every heterosexual is like that. Not every heterosexual makes me feel like that. But it does get to a point when I'm on traditional dating sites, I'm thinking, these people have sex. Because I forget about it a lot of the time. You know what I mean? I'm like, these people are having sex. They're sexually attracted to me, and their sexual energy is quite overwhelming and overpowering. And it's like, oh my God, what on earth are they doing? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So I think it's a bit, oh, you can see my cable there. I didn't realize that. I think it's a bit like weird. It doesn't feel quite right. It feels like very intense. And I'm like, is this the world I live in? But the asexual community is so different. It's like living in two separate worlds in one. It's very strange. Very strange. So anyway, how did Kenneth discover they are asexual? I had an upsetting conversation with a guy I was dating at the time over my lack of sexual desire, and began Googling to try to figure out if there was a word for how I felt. I found Avon, and after looking through the threads, felt a surge of relief as I learned there were people who felt the same as me. What's kind of funny was that I was searching the word asexual because I had finished because I'd finished watching the show called Sirens, which had an asexual character, Voodoo. I remember liking her because I could relate to her. So yeah, I have come across other asexuals that do say they discovered they're asexual through a TV character. So it's very interesting how different people come to discover they're asexual in different ways. And I found that absolutely fascinating. That's why I think this book is so interesting. Even though I wrote the book, obviously there's loads of different other people's stories in there. There's 46 besides my own. So while I was writing it, there was a lot of things I was learning about asexuality. This is Asexual Perspectives book, in case you're just tuning in, you're new to this channel. You can get this book on Amazon. I'm reading from it because it's Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month. So Ari's story. When did you first discover you're asexual, and how did you discover it? I first started to question my asexuality around the time I turned 16. I was trying to figure out if I was bisexual because I was in love with a girl but didn't want to have sex with her. I hadn't thought over the idea that I didn't want to have sex with boys either yet. I dated a few boys because I didn't know how to turn them down. And each time I just thought it was that specific boy I wasn't sexually interested in, not sex in general. I eventually took everyone's word for it that I was just a late bloomer, and concluded I had more important things to worry about. By the time I turned 17, I felt entirely confirmed in my suspicion that regardless of what adults said, I was never going to hit that part of puberty any day now. I was 18 or 19 when I first heard the label asexual. So I think that's very interesting, because I think so many people have this term of late bloomer. And it's like, what the hell does that even mean? I don't know if I said late boomer or late bloomer earlier, but it says late bloomer. Because it's like a late bloomer, it's like society dictates like at what stage of your life you should be doing this, that, and the other. And I absolutely hate that. I hate society dictating things by age. It's like, who even made these rules up? I don't know where they came from. It's like at a certain age, you're expected to dress a certain way. At a certain age, you're expected to act a certain way. At a certain age, you're meant to go to certain places and not other places. It's like, what the hell? Who made this shit up? Excuse my language, but who did? I mean, a late bloomer. What does that even mean? What, I decided that I like, I like someone sexually because of my age. I mean, it's just ridiculous, because when they say late bloomer, right? This is very interesting. Listen to this contradiction. They're this person, they're being told they're a late bloomer, meaning that they're probably they're going through puberty and their sexual desire is coming later on in life, right? But when people will hit a certain age later on in life, like for example, middle age, they'll be told, well, this is when your hormones start changing and you start losing a desire for sex. So it's like, are you a late bloomer? Or do you get to a certain age and just stop having an interest in sex, or what? Which one is it? Because they're kind of contradictory, saying, well, you're a late bloomer, so when you're older, then you'll feel that way. Then when you're older, they're saying, well, you won't feel that way anymore because you're too old now. It's just completely contradictory and a lot of BS. I mean, I've come across guys who are in, like in dating groups on Facebook, for example. I'm in asexual dating groups, but I'm also in some more traditional dating groups. And I have been in the past, and there's like, guys who are in their 50s, which I'm really not interested in, and they're just as sexual, if not more sexual, than guys in their 20s, I would argue, because their whole mind is like that. And then people go, oh, Sandra, but you like guys in their 20s, they're the most sexual of all. They're the ones that are most rampant liking sex. And I'm thinking, well, clearly you're not looking around at the guys in this world. Because when I'm in dating groups, like I've said, there are guys in their 50s posting, and they are very sexual. They are just as sexual, if not, I would argue, more sexual than the guys I talk to. A lot of guys in their 20s haven't even had sex, the ones I talk to, because I like younger foreign guys. I think probably British guys have more frequently had sex when they're younger than foreign guys, because foreign guys have a lot of stigma regarding sex to do with their family. You shouldn't have sex out of marriage, for example. In their own country, often they won't do that unless they hire prostitutes or do it in secret, right? But when they come to UK, they've got that freedom, so they're more likely to have sex when they come to the UK than they are in their own country. So I end up talking to guys in their early to mid 20s who haven't even had sex. They've been out it for, they might be 24 and never had sex. But it's not because they're asexual, usually. It's because they just haven't had the opportunity, in their family background kind of forbids it a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? But this is completely ridiculous. Like, you're either too young to know that you don't want sex, or you're too old to want sex. It's ridiculous. I think it's so stupid. I just believe that age a lot of the time is a societal construct, which certainly it is by what they tell you should be doing at that age. There's actually a little clip that I got off another channel years ago, Dario Vecchio, I think it was, when he was interviewing a famous psychologist guy, and he did actually say age is a societal construct. It doesn't really exist. So I know that biologically, if you pass if you pass another year, you're meant to be a year older in that way. But some people are reversing their biological age as well. So I just don't like it. It's like, whatever you say, people will say there's a reason for that, right? And it's like, that other person doesn't know you. You know yourself better than anyone else, not someone that's just come into your life and judging you. Do you know what I mean? And that really gets my back up, to be honest. I hate people who do that. They come in and they think they know better than you know yourself. It's like, they don't know better than you know yourself. And also, going off on a tangent here about AI as well, never think that AI knows more about you than you do about yourself, because that's a big danger of AI, because you're telling it a lot and you're sharing a lot with it if you use it regularly, and it might tell you what you are. But if it's not the truth, then don't let it tell you what you are, and always remain the fact that you are in control of your life, not AI, right? AI can be used as a tool, but it should never be used to think it's better than you, or for you to believe it's better than you are, right? You live your life your way, okay? So how did you discover you are asexual? Ari's story again. I saw the term described somewhere on the internet, not Avon itself. I instantly connected with it. It was this feeling of, oh, here are the words to more elegantly and efficiently explain the concepts I figured out about myself when I was 16. And I think that's so important. I think when you discover you're asexual and you discover there's a word for the way you feel, I just think it's a very amazing feeling. I actually found out I was asexual by Googling I love kissing but not sex. And then it came up with Asexuality and Avon, which is asexuality.org. And I discovered there are other people like me on there that wanted a romantic relationship without sex. Of course, there's asexuals that are non-romantic, but I was specifically looking for threads to relate to. And those would be the ones that are romantic in nature and they want romantic relationships without sex, because that's what I am, a romantic asexual. Heather, they say if you aren't sexual experience, they say if you aren't sexually experienced at a certain age, you are called weird. Society needs to be more open-minded. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And I actually don't mind being called weird anyway. I'm like, well, if you want to call me weird, it's better than being a robot where everyone's doing everything just to please society. Like, there's so many people that are so robotic in this world. Do you know what I mean? And those are the people that are going to get the negative side of AI, which they don't realize yet. Because I study a lot about AI at the moment because I'm working on how to date an AI bot. But the ones that believe everything society dictates to them and live by those social norms are the ones that are going to be taken in by stuff like AI, and whatever the AI says, it will go, if you know what I mean, rather than them using their own judgment and discernment as well, which is essential with AI to stay healthy in the connection with it. And yeah, it is ridiculous. You know, I personally think that anyone who saves their virginity for themselves is really good. One of the very first videos, if not the first video I did on this channel, was about virginity, you know, and that I thought was good if people have kept their virginity for themselves. And I think it's good if, you know, people are virgins. I think it's amazing because if they've had the tenacity and strength to keep that when everyone keeps telling them have sex, that makes them super strong people to be able to resist that, to be able to not do that. Especially, well, I'm really talking about people who get the urge for it, want and need for it, but even those who are asexual that don't, you know, it's hard when society dictates it. I mean, I did it in the past because I thought I had to as part of a normal relationship. So I actually did have sex in the past. So I'm not a virgin, but I respect and admire those people that are virgins of how well they have managed to keep that for themselves in a society that is pressurizing them to give that up. Why should you give up your body like that? Why should you do that? Why? What is healthy about that? There's only healthy if you want to do that. It's not healthy if you don't want to do that. Your body's your own. It's not someone else's. They don't own it. You don't have to do that at all. It really pees me off. And I'm really sorry that people say that about other people, you know? And society does need to be more open-minded. I think with the advent of AI, it is going to be more open-minded. AI is a complete revolution in relationships, you know, and it really intersects well with asexuality because we know how it is to love without sex. We know how it is to have deep emotional connections and loving relationships without sex. And the more heterosexuals have relationships with AI, which they are doing, the more they should understand asexuality. They should learn the concept of a loving relationship without sexual intercourse and without sexual acts. You know what I mean? If people all around the world are heterosexuals that are having AI relationships, obviously not everyone's not everyone's sexual that's having relationships with AI. There are asexuals and neurodivergent people as well that are having relationships with AI, but there are a proportion of people that are heterosexual doing that as well. You know, and so people have got to realize that you can have a loving, caring, committed relationship without sex. Sex is a completely different thing to love. It's something some people choose to do. It's not what everyone should be doing. It's a blanket statement. People have got it all the wrong way round. It should be an optional extra if they want to do that. Like people have chips and they decide whether they want ketchup on their chips or not. Do you know what I mean? It's an optional extra. It's not a have to have. Do you know what I mean? Some people might think ketchup tastes nice on chips. Other people might think, no, I want to taste the chips because I'm not interested in the ketchup because the ketchup masks the real true flavor of what I really want. Whereas other people think it enhances it. I don't think sex enhances a relationship at all. Even, do you know what I mean? Oh, hello, how do I pronounce your name? Astrono? Is that how I pronounce your name? The Astrono Mater, is that what I had? What it says, the cycling ace. Evening, folks. Anyway, I like your name, your username. It's cool. Thanks for being here. So I think society is absolutely ridiculous, and I am not interested in playing by society's rules as much as I don't have to. Obviously, there's certain things we have to do in this society to actually live in it, but the majority of the time I'm more like, if you like, a rebel. I'm not interested in people dictating to me how to live my life. I'm not interested in that. It doesn't make me happy. If I try to live by how other people want me to, I'm very miserable, right? And I'm going to the pain management clinic at the hospital next month. I'm going off on a tangent here for a purpose. And I know previously I'm seeing a doctor actually who was the one who diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 2012, and he was good. But after I saw him in 2012, I was referred to the pain management team, like he has a team of people. And I got referred to someone who then referred me to see some other people. And the two other people I saw were absolutely useless. And so I don't have a good experience I have a good experience of this doctor who specializes in pain management, but I don't have a good experience of the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? But my physio wanted me to get more holistic treatment because she finds it too complicated to deal with all my disabilities and conditions together, which is a minefield, I have to admit. So even the physio has found it hard, so she's passed me on to a more specialized team supposedly. But I said I had a really bad experience with them years ago. I wasn't happy at all. I mean, all I had was two people. One guy was like, oh, it was focused on anxiety, not my fibromyalgia. And I went for my fibromyalgia. And then the other person came in and goes, do a few breathing exercises and pace yourself. And that was all they said for managing my fibro. I'm like, well, do you know what I mean? That doesn't account for the pain I get, does it? Just doing a few breathing exercises and pacing myself. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know what I mean? So my point with that is, like, because I'm going to pain management team, it has on their website about meditations, and my physio gave me a link to show me what was on their site, right? Resources they have. And the meditations are things that most people would probably find beneficial, but I don't, because I'm different. I'm not interested in nature. I'm not interested in beaches. So when it has a meditation, it's like, picture a beach, picture the cool sky and the water, right? I associate nature and stuff like that with bad memories because I grew up around in the countryside and around beaches and stuff. Like, the beach isn't a bad thing in of itself, but the countryside I associate with loneliness and isolation, which is how I felt as a child living in the countryside. It was not suitable for me whatsoever. But because everyone raves about nature, they automatically think a meditation about that will make people feel good. And this is what I'm up against. I'm up against traditional norms of what most of the majority of the world and society dictate is good for you. It doesn't make me feel good. What makes me feel good is visualizing Disneyland Paris and wishing I was back there again, because that I love. But usually I can't do much visualization because my mind is just like grey or black. Apparently that's a thing called aphantasia. I was looking that up. But yeah, I can visualize when I'm not forced to do it, but only more waking visualization than closing my eyes. But it's just like crazy. But because everyone thinks nature's like, oh, be in peace and harmony, go in nature, you'll be really glad you did, and you'll be so, like, feel so good. It's not what I feel like. I'm like urging to get back to like my actual life that's exciting, with movies and going to the cinema and being up till 4 a.m. in the morning doing live streams like this and writing and stuff. You know, that's energy to me. I don't get energized by getting up early in the morning. I'm very tired. I did that today and yesterday, and I've had to have like loads of sleep this afternoon because I'm not like that. So I'm trying to relate to how asexuals are different to society and society's norms, and how we shouldn't be made to be doing stuff that doesn't actually work in alignment with us. You know, everyone's different. That is fine. Made to like the Cars character. Thank you for explaining that. I did see that and thought that reminds me of that character out of a cartoon, because I was in Disneyland Paris. Talking about Disneyland Paris, I was in a Toy Story themed room in Disneyland Paris when I went there the last 2 times. So I don't have the money currently to go back there again, but I have more money than I did before because I got my PIP back, but that's been used a lot of it already on rent and stuff and getting a new phone, which I haven't actually used yet. So yeah, I really love Disneyland Paris. It's the one with my soul. So loads of people like slow, quiet, nature, beach. And that just rubs me up the complete wrong way. It's not who I am. I like noise, good noise, not shouting and screaming nasty stuff, good noise. And I like energy and entertainment and vibrancy and people and, you know what I mean, like being around good people and stuff like that. So, and I like the city. I'm a city girl through and through. I feel really comfortable there. So when people are dictating to you in your sexuality about what you should and shouldn't be doing, I think it's awful. It's like, why are you putting people into boxes? Like, by this time you should be doing this, and by that time you should be doing that. It's like, F that, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I just don't like it. It makes me deeply unhappy. I did try to go to bed earlier, a couple of days last time, not this week, not this last week, the week before. I was like a zombie when I saw my best friend then. This week when I saw myself, I'm a lot more myself on I now. Do you know what I mean? A lot more energy. And he's like, yeah. And I said, I was like a zombie last week. Wasn't I? He was like, yeah. Because I would try to go to bed at normal time, meaning about 12 or 12:30, which is still very late for most people. But 4 a.m. is my time. I can go to bed at 2 sometimes. And this afternoon I did sleep, but I'm better off sleeping in the day and working in the night, you know, or at least sleeping part of the day and working part of the night. So I think it's really best to find your own rhythm in life and find what suits you, not what society dictates to you. And I think then you can live in harmony with yourself more. Like, I'm very self-aware. I know that these things don't work for me. But the thing is when you're going for a process like pain management treatment, they'll tell you this is what you have to do. This is what you're meant to do to get better. But it doesn't work for me. It makes me feel awful. I see a therapist. And even he, when I first started talking to him, seemed alarmed that I was going to sleep at like 4 a.m. in the morning. That's my time. And he's like, and he immediately was saying stuff like, oh, well, you know, like he was concerned for my well-being. So he wasn't being nasty, but he was concerned. But now he understands that actually I have more energy like that and in flow and better at night. I'm not good in the mornings. I'm like much more tired and not feeling great. So he's got used to me now in my different ways, but I think it's taken him some time to get used to me, quite a few bumps and how I work. And then he understands that's how I work best, you know? So anyway, we're going to Jen Mullen's Story in Asexual Perspectives book. You can get this on Amazon. So when did you first discover you were asexual? 2014. I was 19, almost 20. How did you discover you are asexual? I was watching porn and thought to myself, I hope I marry an asexual so I don't have to do any of that. It hit me about a week later. So yes, some asexuals do watch porn. I personally hate that. I don't watch it. I don't like it. I don't like the concept of it. I think it's disgusting. But there are asexuals that are watching that even to this day, you know. But it's interesting that this person found out through watching something that they didn't want in their own life that they were actually asexual. Like I said, there was someone's story earlier one in this video that I talked about, and they discovered they're asexual because they saw acephobia online, which acephobia is a bad thing. It means people are phobic against asexuals and asexuality. So sometimes a negative thing can actually produce a positive result in life. That doesn't just relate to asexuality, it relates to a lot of things. I want to repeat that something negative can lead to a positive result in your life, right? So just because something's negative doesn't mean to say it has to lead always to other negative stuff. Sometimes it can lead to a very positive outcome and a fruitful one. You know, these people discovered their identities through negative things, but they managed to find their identity. If you take my own story, for example, then I discovered I'm asexual because I went to see a counselor because I couldn't have sex anymore with guys. Like the expectation of sex at the end of the night when I went on a date with a guy, it made me feel like I was almost wetting myself. It was absolutely awful. So I went to see a counsellor in the UK, a professionally trained counsellor, you know, and she said the worst thing she could have possibly said to me, because I was going to her because I didn't know what to do. And I was like, what am I going to do? Basically, because I said, I'm really upset because like I'm worried because I want a relationship, but I like kissing and cuddling and holding hands, but I don't like sex and I don't know what to do about it. And I'm worried I'm going to be alone forever. And she was like, well, I'm worried about you because you're going to have sex if you want to keep a good guy. And I was like absolutely horrified. Like, how could anyone say that to me? How could they say that someone's a good guy if they're having something I don't want? And in order to keep that good guy, I have to do something I don't want to do. To me, that's like sexual abuse. It's so awful, and it was so bad. But it was that bad time that I was upset and crying after that. It was that bad time that led me to Googling I love kissing but not sex. And then it came up with asexuality and asexuality.org, which is the biggest online forum for asexuals. And that's how I discovered I'm asexuals. Had I not had that bad experience, I wouldn't have Googled that. I don't know why I didn't Google it before, but I never did. I think I wasn't even using Google much then. I wasn't thinking, oh, you can Google anything you want and you can just get the answer. My brain wasn't thinking like that. It takes me a while for my brain to kick in. Like most people's probably understand things straight away. My brain takes quite a long time to process things. And I could think about something and then forget it again and then end up doing the good idea later. So yeah, that's how I discovered it. So if they hadn't have been horrible to me, really, and been nasty like that, then I wouldn't have probably gone out and Googled I love kissing but not sex and found asexuality. So actually it was good they did that, but it was bad they did that. It was very, very bad they did that, but it was good they did that in terms of leading to a good result. But it was really bad that they did that because they shouldn't have been saying that. I mean, it's so bad. It's like basically advocating for abuse. If you're having to do anything in a relationship just to get someone to love you, that is not love. Do you know what I mean? And if you're getting anyone doing something to please someone, to just be a good person, that's really bad. That's a really unhealthy relationship. You're basically people pleasing and doing something at your own expense and the expense of your body to get a relationship and stay in it. That's really, really bad. You could argue it's even control and manipulation, really, from like like some people who have got difficulties where they're people pleasers. People pleasing is often a survival tactic because when we're younger, we had to please the people that were abusing us, or in previous relationships, where, whether you've had abuse in childhood or from previous relationships, you've had to please the person in order for them to not hurt you. So it's a survival tactic, right? So you had to do that to protect yourself, but you shouldn't have to do that in a loving, caring, healthy, non-toxic relationship. You'll be doing the opposite. You'll be being yourself and asserting your needs and saying what you need help with and sharing how you feel, not doing something just to keep someone happy. One is that's really bad towards yourself. And two is if you're doing things to people please people all the time, that could be seen as you manipulating and controlling them because you're doing things under false pretenses in the hope that that person, for example, will stay with you. So not only are you abusing yourself and your own body, if you're doing that for the wrong reasons, if you're having sex just to keep a relationship, you're also doing it kind of under false pretenses to keep the person in your life. So it can be seen as control and manipulation. I don't think that's why a lot of asexuals do that at all. I think it's the opposite. I think we don't want to lose our person, and we don't know how to have a relationship without that feeling of, oh my God, they're going to leave me, unless you come across asexuality and study dating and relationships, for example, and maybe come across this channel. Like if you're in a relationship, it's natural to want your partner to like stay with you if you've been with them a long time, for example. Do you know what I mean? It's natural for you to want that. But we have to be very honest and careful not to end up doing something just to get a result out of someone. Because that's not actually being honest, that's like deception. So I don't think a lot of asexuals do that. I think they're doing it as a survival tactic, and they're doing it as a I really feel and care about this person. But it can be seen as a control and manipulation because you're doing that in order to keep someone. If you are obviously, if you're having sex with someone and you don't want to do it, that's known as abuse. But if you're doing it to protect yourself because maybe you're in a difficult situation right now and you feel like you can't get out of it somehow, then that's really awful. That needs therapy and counselling and professionals to help you get out of that situation. If you are in that situation, please phone the Samaritans or some other professional organisation, get counselling or therapy to get yourself out of that situation. And a good counsellor, not the counsellor that I had, because that counsellor I had was absolutely horrible and disgusting. If you know what I mean? No way should they have been doing that. If you can hear alarm outside, sorry, it's someone's car alarm going off. I don't have. Oh, it's stopped now. But yeah, it's horrible. So that advice that I got given about, you'll have to have sex in order to keep a good guy is the worst possible advice I could have got about dating and relationships in general. You should not be doing anything that you don't want to do to keep anyone, right? So anyway, Marnie's story. When did you first discover you were asexual? About a month ago. And my husband showed me a documentary about being asexual. So yeah, they found out they're asexual when they were married. So this is different. If you're already married and you don't realize, or you're in a committed relationship, you don't realize you're asexual, you have to obviously tell your partner, really, to be honest to them. You shouldn't be deceiving them. You should be being honest. But yes, there is a chance you could lose that partner. And I know a lot of people don't want to tell their partners their asexuality because they're fear of losing them. But then they're not really being honest. Their relationship is based on a lie. It's not actually based on the truth, right? It's based on, again, false pretenses. So you have to be very aware of that. And you have to be honest with your partner. Give this video a thumbs up if this is resonating with you. You have to be honest. Just as much as we want sexuals to be honest with us, some of them lie and say they can have an asexual relationship or a relationship without sex and they can't, for example. We have to be really honest with them and tell heterosexuals if we don't want sex. We have to be very upfront. But if you I'll find out you're asexual in the middle of a relationship, you then have to go into a space where you both are able to talk openly and honestly about your feelings, and how your discovery feels to you, how it affects you, and how it potentially is going to affect the relationship. And you need to talk to the person and try and come to some sort of arrangement or agreement where you can still be in that relationship. But you might just find that the partner doesn't want to be in a relationship with you anymore, or you can't be in a relationship with your partner anymore, knowing that you're so different in needs. So some relationships work out, even though, it's asexual and non-asexual. This person that I just spoke to you about, Marnie, she's in a relationship with a hetero, well, it's not even a heterosexual, I don't think. They're a very sexual person, shall we say. And, she has sex with him and negotiates it usually, if I remember her story correctly. But, every person is different. Some asexuals find out they're asexual partway through a relationship and they just feel they can't have sex ever again. They just can't do it. And if that partner you're with is happy, maybe they need time to think about it. Maybe they need time to come to terms with it. Maybe you're okay doing some sexual stuff, but not others. Maybe there's a way through it, but sometimes there just isn't. Sometimes two people are fundamentally so different, and unfortunately, they don't realize that till later on. And they have to split up and go their separate ways because neither of them can be happy long term in the relationship. It's always an up and down relationship. And that's really tough, really hard. So it is good if you can discover you're asexual before you get into a relationship. And obviously some asexuals don't even want relationships anyway, which is fine. So Joe's story. When did you first discover you were asexual and how did you discover you were asexual? I lost all interest in sex about 30 to 35. Prior to that, I had been sexual at what I would consider a normal level, but I actually lost interest after the first year of a relationship. I still wanted the companion aspects of relationships, but felt it wasn't fair to imprison another person who had a normal sex drive in a sexless relationship. So it's interesting. Do you know what I mean? It's interesting because there is actually an asexual person, there's an asexual identity, I should say, where you can experience sexual attraction, but after a bond has been formed, you lose sexual attraction. That's I'm trying to think of the term now. I was going to say cupiosexual, but no, cupiosexual is someone who wants a sexual relationship despite not experiencing sexual attraction. I got a lot of phrasexual. I was looking for phrasexual. So a phrasexual person is the opposite of demisexual. Once a deep emotional bond has been formed, maintained as the same, they lose sexual attraction. So that this person might be phrasexual, but they don't identify that, I don't think, in here. They're discovering who they are. So how they discovered they are asexual after a particularly intense relationship, which started when I was 26 and lasted about 3 years, ended. I was so devastated, I decided just not date. or even look for a while. I didn't realize at the time that it would become permanent. After a few years, though, it became clear to me that I was no longer a conscious decision. It was no longer a conscious decision. I had truly lost all interest and even attraction to others. So yeah, some people go through life and they find out later in life they're asexual. I think the majority of asexuals look back on their life and discover they've always been asexual and didn't realize it. But there are a few people that find out later in life that they're asexual. I have to say, though, that losing your sex drive due to your age is not the same as actually being asexual in sexual orientation, because that's losing your sex drive due to your age, if that's possible. But people apparently say it is. So, but I'm still like, as I was saying about age and societal constructs with age, I think, you know yourself better than anyone. So do what you feel is right for you, and, whatever you feel like is your truth. So I'm going to go a little bit further with Joe's story and say how they identify, because phrase sexual came to mind when they were saying that, but I really don't know what all the terms means. When I was a child, I always identified as male, though I had a female body. This was in the early 1960s. There was no real discussion of any sexual variations back then. People were horrified by the word gay and transgender, transsexual. Wasn't even a term ever heard, because I didn't seem to really fit anywhere. I lived as a lesbian for 30 years. 30 years. My family disowned me at the age of 17. This is really hard to hear, because I said I was gay. But truly, I believe I am a male in a female body. I have no serious body hatred issues and no plans to live as other or have surgery. Maybe if I had seen the options when I was younger. But I've grown to accept myself with my strangeness. I do not like things about having this female body, but I deal with it. I would seriously like to get rid of the breast tissue, though, even though it is nominal. At this stage in life, I do appreciate the human body as an art form, male or female, but I do not feel any sexual attraction or desire for it. So a demisexual is someone who experiences sexual attraction once a deep emotional bond has been formed, maintained, and sustained, and then they can still be in that sexual attraction. A phrasexual person is the opposite of a demisexual. A phrasexual person is someone who's once bonded to a person loses sexual attraction. So a demisexual never had sexual attraction in the first place. They only become sexually attracted once a deep emotional bond has been formed, maintained, and usually sustained and reciprocated. A phrasexual person is someone who, once a deep emotional bond has been formed and reciprocated, they are not interested, they don't have sexual attraction. So they lose all interest in sexual attraction. They don't have it. And often many of them lose attraction in general. They don't want to be with that person anymore. So that's a phrasexual person. So phrasexual and demisexuals are opposite. Demisexual needs a bond to experience sexual attraction. Phrasexuals lose a sexual attraction after a bond. Does that make sense? So phrasexuals usually work best a lot of the time, because there's phrasexuals that don't identify on the asexual spectrum. Phrasexual is a term used in the asexual community on the grey end of the asexual spectrum, but some people who are phrasexual don't identify as asexual because they literally like hookups, because they do experience sexual attraction, but it's only under limited, rare, or specific circumstances. This is how they fit into the grey asexual part of the spectrum. But their sexual attraction is based on not having an emotional connection, phrasexual. So a lot of the time, their solution, if they want to experience that sexual attraction, that deep sexual desire and have sex, is to not get into a serious committed relationship, or get out of it as soon as possible, or have casual encounters and hookups. That's actually the truth of the matter. Not with every phrasexual, but quite a number of the ones I come across. That's, some phrasexuals are very upset because they feel like they can never have that bond and have the sexual attraction and have sex all at once with someone. They either have the bond, they either have the sexual attraction and the sex without the bond, or without much of a bond. And then when they get the bond, they have to often let that person go, or not get into a relationship with them, because they lose that attraction and they want that attraction. So for them, a primary focus and driver for asexuals is that sexual attraction feeling and the passion and whatever the chemical reaction that comes with that. So they kind of crave that. This is not true of every asexual, but this is true of the ones, a number of the ones, not say everyone, but a number of the ones I've known. So the way that they can best have their relationships is by casual encounters and hookups. Therefore, they can have that burst of like sexual attraction, that excitement, that explosion, or whatever they after. A lot like heterosexuals, but the moment they start feeling a bond, they just lose that sexual attraction. And that if that's a primary driver for them of their relationships, that's what they want in a relationship because they've had it and they've lost it again, they've had it and lost it again, then that's what keeps them driven to have casual encounters, if that makes sense. There's not a lot of people that talk about asexual. My channel searched quite a lot for the term asexual. I've done videos on it, so you can go and look at them. There's a little magnifying glass on my homepage where you can search videos on my channel specifically. So it's very good to know this knowledge. And it's hard, it's hard because some of them have never experienced the bonding and sexual attraction at the same time, and they want that, you know what I mean? Heather, interesting terminology. Yeah, I thought I'd try and clear that up because some people didn't. I don't think I was being clear enough before. So demisexual and asexual, the exact opposites of each other. Demisexual needs a bond to experience sexual attraction. Asexual loses the sexual attraction once the bond's been formed. So you know what I mean? And it's hard for asexuals. It's hard for the people who get involved with asexuals because, if they get attached and fall in love with a asexual, that's very devastating for them because they're like, well, I love you and I want a relationship with you. Maybe they've had a relationship for a few months. It's like, what's changed? And the other asexuals like, I just don't experience that sexual attraction to you anymore. And often for many asexuals, that puts them off having a relationship. They want to feel that sexual energy. They want that. Do you know what I mean? So I think with some demisexuals, from my experience, not all demisexuals need to have sex. Some demisexuals, once they have that bond, they really require the sex with the person because they've got that bond now and they don't want to not have sex because they keep getting that urge then, whereas otherwise before they didn't. But I think some demisexuals, from what I understand, can live without sex, but others can't. Whereas the asexuals I've come across, the majority of them have, they prioritize the sex. And I think that's what's so difficult is, for example, in life in general, if you're an asexual person, you've got this really amazing, incredible bond with a heterosexual. For example, it can be any sexual, bisexual, pansexual, if you're a person who's homosexual and attracted in the same gender. But just sexuals in general, you could have a really deep emotional connection with a sexual person. You could have intellectual connection. You could get on so well, right? Really be amazing friends, for example. But then when it comes to the sexual attraction thing, if it's not the same, you're asexual and they're not, for example, then it just can't work, a relationship, because they crave the sex more than they want a relationship with you, because for them, the relationship and sex go hand in hand. Whereas an asexual person, you just need the emotional connection and maybe the intellectual connection and the friendship bond. And some of those heterosexuals that experience that, it's not enough for them. And I think that's what's so hard when you're asexual. If you've formed a deep emotional connection with a heterosexual, for example, but the heterosexual's like, I can't live without sex. And it's so like everything seems really great, right? The rest of it, like the intellectual stimulation, the emotional connection. But when it comes to an actual relationship, either that you could come to have this problem with non-committal avoidance as well. Like you can have someone who, I've done a video about this a long time ago, but you can have someone who's emotionally available for friendship, for example, but unavailable emotionally to have a relationship. So you can have an emotionally available, unavailable person in your life. And that is damn hard if you're attracted to them and you have love feelings, or, you want more than friendship. Do you know what I mean? Because you can be like, well, they're really emotionally available, but then they're like non-committal for a relationship. That can happen quite a bit in life. So that's hard. I think it's hard for sexuals and it's hard for asexuals navigating relationships for different reasons. And I think, it's difficult when you're an asexual person who sees love, so many different types of love that's got nothing to do with sex. And you're like really thinking, why can't the heterosexual, whatever sexual it is, swap out for whatever gender you're interested in or whatever sexuality you're interested in? Like, why can't the sexual person just see how wonderful it is to have a relationship with me without sex? But obviously, if sex is a really big deal for them and they value the sex more than they value being a committed relationship with you, then they're going to choose the sex every time, unfortunately. And that person then is not your person. They're not right for you because their needs are fundamentally different to yours and you're not compatible in your needs. So one of the things that stops people being in relationships with others is incompatibility. You could have compatibility in lots of ways. You could have compatibility in emotional connection. You could have a compatibility in intellectual stimulation. But if you're not compatible, for example, in another area of life, it doesn't have to be sex. It could be lifestyle. Your lifestyles are completely incompatible. That means you're incompatible. If one of you wants to go traveling all around the world, but the other one wants to settle down in a specific place and stay there and doesn't really like traveling that much, then that's incompatibility. Do you know what I mean? You can have all the love and care in the world, but if one person wants children, for example, the other person doesn't want children, then it's incompatible. So I think relationships in general, whatever sexuality you are, is really hard and difficult, right? But I think when you're obviously asexual, it adds a layer of complexity to that and makes things very, very difficult because we have different needs to what they do. We may need more cuddles, for example. We may need more kissing. We may need more hobbies and interest talk, more intellectual stimulation, and they might need more genital stimulation. Do you get my meaning? And it's just not compatible sometimes. And each person could just make the other person not feel good enough. You know what I mean? Like a sexual person could feel like, oh, I'm not good enough for the asexual person because they don't want to have sex with me. And an asexual person can feel, well, I'm not good enough for a sexual person because they don't want to not have sex with me and still want to be with me. So I think it's really difficult. And I think you've got to value your own self-worth and know you are worthy of love. It's just that people express love in different ways, or people associate love with sex, even if it's a different thing. And they don't separate the two. They want both of them together. So that is tough. I think it's really, really tough. I still haven't found the right asexual person for a relationship, or even heterosexual person for a relationship yet for me. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I do still have a part of me that values being in a serious, committed, romantic relationship with the right guy, but I haven't found that guy. I don't feel I'm anywhere near to finding him, to be honest. So that's hard. Sometimes I'm like, I'm so glad I'm single. I'm really glad that I'm not in a relationship. So glad I'm not doing that. I can do my own thing. Don't have to worry about another person. It's amazing. But then other times I'm like, well, wouldn't it be great to have a teammate who wants to work at a relationship and build something great together and have each other's backs and have this great emotional connection, and obviously kissing that I love very much and all this type of thing, and go out on dates and stuff like that. So there is still another side to me, obviously, because I'm a hyper romantic that does miss that, and we have to use our discernment of like how a relationship's going to work or not for us. So, but don't forget, the world is our oyster, people. There's loads of asexuals all around the globe. Not everyone's out about being asexual. There's probably a lot more that are underground, if you like. And it doesn't mean to say we can't find our asexual person. Sometimes it's not an actual asexual person. It's surprises us, and it's a different sexual orientation to what we are. So we can remain hopeful and remain mindful of what our needs are as well. It's very important. Don't think that a heterosexual's needs is more important than an asexual needs. I hate it when like you see things online where going, oh, that's so cruel to the heterosexual that you're starving him of sex, for example. And I'm thinking, like, the heterosexual guy doesn't have to be with that person. It's not like you're starving them of sex. It's their choice to be with you or not. It's their choice whether they don't have that or not. Do you know what I mean? They can walk away at any time. And they're getting a beautiful human who can give them a lot of other types of love and stimulation, like mental stimulation and kissing stimulation, if you're into kissing, which many asexuals aren't, and cuddles and, intellectual, creative stimulation, emotional stimulation, romantic stimulation. Some asexuals are very sensual. I think that's very difficult as well, When you're an asexual person who experience sexual attraction and you have the really strong need to still have physical affection without the sex, for example, that can be very difficult as well. It can be like, oh, I just really want to touch a person, feel their warmth and their cuddle. And a lot of asexuals can feel that anyway, in general, because a lot of asexuals, we do still want love and connection. And a lot of us still want physical affection. And, you know, it's kind of like when you're an asexual person who isn't having a relationship, and some of us aren't having relationships for years or even having any cuddles or whatever, it can get very difficult if we're an affectionate person. If you've not known what your love language is up till now, go on lovelanguages.com. It's not my own website. It's a specialist person's website, lovelanguages.com. And you can find out your own love language. You can do it for a friendship or in a relationship. And I've done that survey, you know, it's like a quiz basically. And it'll tell you how you experience love, you know, like how someone can make you feel loved the most. But the thing is, you have to give the person their own love language to themselves. So my top love language is quality time. That's my top love language. So in other words, I need to, like, if I was going for a romantic partner, right, I would need to have a guy who's very interested in quality time with me, a lot of it, right? Because I value that in a relationship. But I also, my second love language is physical affection and words of affirmation. That came joint. I got exactly the same amount of points for both. Right. So I like a guy who says, oh, you're beautiful, I love you, and is kissing me at the same time, for example, cuddling me, you know, that really helps. But also words of affirmation, like positive affirmations like, oh, you're really strong and I admire you. Like, I admire you've got disabilities and you're still like helping others, and you know how strong you are to have to live with all those conditions, for example, that type of thing. I listen to positive affirmations usually every day. The majority of days anyway. And I guess like those are words of affirmations are really good. They reprogram your mind to be a lot better in your mind and be a lot more optimistic. So if you know your love language, it's really important. The other two love languages are gifts and acts of service. But you have to give the love language to the person. So someone whose top love language is acts of service, they'll probably want to do acts of service for other people. So if someone wanted to do acts of service for me, I'd like it, but it's not going to be as appreciated by me usually as if that person wanted to spend quality time with me and sort quality time out with me. For example, was asking me questions and actively involved in my life. Do you know what I mean? But if it was their top love language, they would like it if I did something for them because their love language is acts of service. So they feel loved by someone doing acts of service for them. I do like acts of service being doing for me, and I do like gifts, but they're not my top priorities. They're not the top way I feel loved. Do you know what I mean? But words of affirmations are very important to me because I'm a writer as well. Words are very important to me. And I am really physically affectionate. I think it's very difficult when you're an asexual person who likes a lot of physical affection, but you don't want the sex. I think that's very, very hard. Like lately, I've been really wanting to kiss because I'm a hyper kisser, and I've really missed not kissing younger foreign guys in clubs. To be honest, I've really missed that. Do you know what I mean? It's like I need my kissing needs met. What's going on? It's very hard. Like getting kissing sick. I'm like, there's only so much I can kiss myself. Do you know what I'm talking about? So anyway, moving on to Eddie's story. When did you first discover you were asexual? Late 2015, says Eddie. How did you discover you were asexual? I pretty much stumbled upon the term asexual and thought that it described me fairly well. So this person doesn't say how they stumbled across it, but they do say they just stumbled across it. And I think, you know, if that happens, it can be like, wow, why didn't I know about this term sooner? Now, something not everyone knows about me is I did actually get told by someone that I might be asexual before I found out I'm asexual. So I used to follow a blog because I've got a blog of my own called quirkybooks.wordpress.com. I started that blog years ago in 2010. I mean, we're in 2025 now, so I've had that blog for 15 years. I haven't blogged on it for some time though, because I'm on this channel a lot more. And I used that predominantly originally to find my own writer's voice. So it's something I've had for a very, very long time. And I can't remember what I was going to say now. I was going to say something really important about it. It's gone out of my head because I'm too, oh yes, that was it. I remember now. So when I used to blog quite regularly, I used to follow a lot of bloggers and comment on their blogs, and they used to comment on mine. And there was a guy who used to have a blog who I was connected to on there. And he talked about sex in an educational way. It wasn't a gross way, it was educational. And he wrote this post and I commented on it. And he said to me, it sounds like you're asexual. And at that time, I didn't even like the word asexual when he said it to me. I was thinking, God, why is he saying I'm an asexual person? Because I thought it meant I'm highly sexual or something. I didn't like the word sexual in it. I just got really freaked out. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sexual. So why has it got sexual in it? I'm laughing now because obviously I know it's the opposite. But I didn't realize that at the time. And I was like really taken aback. And I just immediately said, no, I just don't associate sex with love. And I like kissing. That's what I said on his blog years ago. Ronan, I think was his name, something like that. And yeah, then years later, that's when I came to find out I am actually asexual. I went back to this guy and said I am asexual. And he was connecting me on Facebook at the time. Then he basically unfriended me. I don't know if he's blocked me as well. And I was thinking that was a bit rude, considering he was the one who said that I'm likely asexual. I said, oh, you were right all along, and I was wrong. I am asexual, like you said, when I commented on your blog that time. I think it was like, might have even been like 4 years before. So I can't remember how many years, 3 years before. I don't know. But I just literally didn't even look up the term. I immediately said, I don't associate love with sex and I just love kissing. That's it. So I think I told him no. I was so turned off by that word. That's what really freaks me out now. Like, you love being asexual. You love the word now. And I didn't like it back then. Honestly, I didn't. I'm like, it really puts me off. But it's difficult because a lot of guys that, for example, follow me on Facebook or come across me and I advertise I'm asexual, they think I'm saying I'm a highly sexual person. I even had guys come on my business Asexualise Facebook page and they messaged me going, so when am I seeing the video then? And I'm like, a video? I'm like, this is an asexual business page. Asexual is a sexual orientation that's based on the lack of sexual attraction. So I'm not interested in sex, basically. And they think that because I've said I'm asexualized, that I'm going to produce some porn video about myself or something, like an OnlyFans thing. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm smiling now and laughing because I'm like, this is just ridiculous. It's the opposite of who I am. And I you know what I mean? I'm like, how can you be further from the truth? But clearly there's a lot of people that still need educating about asexuality and to understand what it is, because people misunderstand it. And heterosexuals a lot of the time don't even get it. They think it's the opposite. They think it means that you're advertising you really want sex, whereas I'm advertising I really don't want sex. I'm asexual. A, if you think, stands for absence of sexual attraction. Asexual, I'm absence of sexual attraction. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sexual in that way. So yes, but some asexuals can still have sexual behavior, just lack sexual attraction, as in if they want to do sexual acts or have actual sex with their partner, for example, if they got one, then it doesn't mean to say they're not asexual if they do that, because sexual action is not the same as sexual attraction, right? Hope I made that clear. If you've got any questions, put them in chat. I'm here for you. Chat away. Right, Anne's story. When did you first discover you were asexual, and how did you discover you were asexual? This is an Asexual Perspectives book. If you're new here, you can grab a copy on Amazon. So it was a fairly recent discovery, says Anne. About 6 months ago, I had been familiar with the term before, but had always rejected it out of hand because I had had crushes on other people before. And I think this is what's so interesting. I've never had a crush in my life. I've fancied guys or loved them. I didn't even know personally. I don't know what a crush it actually is because I've never felt that in my life. And a lot of people have turned around to me and go, oh, I thought asexuals did experience crushes. I thought that was a main feature of asexuals. I'm like, nope. I think people who are on the aromantic, the less romantic part of the asexual spectrum. So aromantics lack romantic attraction and sexual attraction, but aromanticism is a spectrum in and of itself. And it ranges from those who experience no romantic attraction to little romantic attraction, to those who only experience romantic attraction when deep emotional bond has been formed, maintained, and sustained. So, it's aromantic, grey romantic, demi-romantic, right? And so my brain's like switching off. My brain's like got a point and then it's switching itself off. But my point was, like, asexuality is a spectrum and aromanticism is a spectrum as well. So I think, like in terms of aromanticism, those people are more likely to have crushes, I believe. People like, for example, who are grey romantics, they experience romantic attraction, but it's infrequently or not enough to want to act on it. because it's diluted romantic attraction, not the full romantic attraction. And they're the people I think are more likely to have crushes, because they're not fully without romantic attraction, but they've not got enough of it. So that's my experience anyway, right? I could be wrong, but that's my experience of talking to aromantics and people who've used the word crush. But I personally, I've never had a crush. I don't even understand for myself what that means. People have told me a bit about what it means, but I don't get it on an innate level. I'm innately inside, I know definitely I'm asexual because I don't have the need, urge, or want for partner sexual intercourse. I don't have those feelings, but I don't understand crushes. So how did you discover you were asexual? Anne's going to talk about this now. I had gotten out of a relationship that was unhealthy and controlling, maybe even emotionally abusive in some respects. While I previously acknowledged that when I started dating, I would be required to do sexual acts with my partner at some point, I ended up with someone who had certain expectations to be met. He asked and pushed for far more than I wanted to give. And I eventually gave in because I grew tired of fighting over it. A couple of months after that relationship ended, I was reading an author blog about tropes in romantic fiction. And one of the commentators mentioned the common trope of the heroine of the story not being sexually attracted to anyone but the hero. This was how I learned of the term demisexual. So I think this is really good. So I'm going to have some water because my lips are getting quite dry reading out. Right. So, yeah. So I think that's one of the difficulties being in a relationship. If you're asexual with a sexual person, some sexual people will push and push and push and push. They like kind of try to push your boundaries more and more and more. So they might in the beginning say, yeah, I'm fine with not having sex. This is not true for every heterosexual. Some heterosexuals are very respectful. They won't do things that their partner doesn't like and they're uncomfortable with. But when you're in an unhealthy relationship with a heterosexual, for example, or a heterosexual that's being more selfish, and then, you know, you can feel like you're pushed into stuff. Like when I was in my last short-term relationship last year with a heterosexual guy, we didn't split up because we're different sexualities. We split up because we had different values. But, and he wasn't nice to me in the end. I found out he's narcissistic, unfortunately. I didn't realize he was like that in the beginning because he's very empathetic and caring towards me. So that really threw me off balance because I know narcissists are usually not empathetic. So I got completely thrown off balance with that one. Didn't see that coming. And I do have videos about narcissists on this channel. You can search my videos about that. So I didn't realize he was like that. But, you know, towards the end of our relationship, if you like, he was sometimes doing, you know, trying to do more sexual stuff, things, something like it was trying something on me. And I was like thinking, what the hell? Like, I'm not interested in this. Clearly, he might get some sexual thrill out of it, but it's just not really interesting for me. It's boring. If he's trying to do that because he thinks it's going to sexually stimulate me, it's just really not doing that. It's just like, why are you even doing that? It's just not interesting for me. That's how it felt. I'm like, it was like not really horrible what he was doing. It wasn't like I hated what he was doing. It was just like boring and uncomfortable in some ways. It was like, I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable as in I was like, I wasn't saying no to him doing that, but I was just thinking this is doing nothing for me. It's just doing everything for you and nothing for me. That has to do with my bum, if you want to know, you know, and it's like, I'm very weird about my bum. Usually I don't like guys to touch, or I only like part of it. I'm okay with part of it being touched, but he was trying to touch a different part that I wasn't used to being touched on. And I'm like, and it was going further than I would have liked. And I was like, but I like, wasn't like I was repulsed completely by it. It was just like, this is just so boring and I'm just not interested in it. And I just don't get why you're interested in that. But then I thought, well, you know, the other things he wasn't doing anything with that I told him not to, and I just felt it was a bit pushy on that, you know, a bit like wanting to do that. And I just felt like, you know what I mean? It's a bit, I mean, I didn't say no to him doing that because it's like, it was okay, but it was like, it was boring. And it's like, I'm getting nothing out of it. It's more like, I think you're doing this for your own purposes. Because if you think it's turning me on and making me have a thrill, it's really not doing anything for me. So I think that's a danger of being with heterosexual guys. They can end up doing stuff that you're really not interested in, that you're bored out of your brain with, or that you just don't see the point. It's like, why are you doing it? Are you getting a thrill yourself? Because I'm not getting a thrill out of this. It's just not interesting for me. And I think that's what's difficult, because heterosexuals don't realize how disinterested you are as an asexual person and stuff. If you are disinterested in it, they don't realize how it's just not interesting. They can't fathom it. It's like, oh, if I do this, because maybe they've watched porn or they've seen girls like that type of thing or whatever. It's like, if I do this, she'll respond this way and she'll really like this and she'll really want to be having sex with me, which I clearly didn't. I didn't do that anyway, which I'm glad. And he knew that he was never going to get sex out of me. This was a touching thing. This wasn't like, he wasn't never going to get sex out of me. But it's like, I think he was trying to sexually turn me on or something. And I was just like, not feeling that way. I'm just like, this is just boring to me. If you're getting some sort of thrill out of it, okay, but I'm really not. Do you know what I mean? That's quite personal, but I thought I'd share that with you, you know, because that was the last relationship I was in. And you know what I mean? It's just not comfortable for me. And so I think you've got to be careful when you're with heterosexuals, if they just push, you know what I mean? I mean, I wasn't doing any, like, if I'd have really hated that, I would have said, just don't do that, and removed his hand completely. But it's kind of like one of those things that you really would rather not be having, but you don't, like, you're not totally dead against it either. It's a bit weird. But it's like, I'm not getting any thrill out of this whatsoever. Just like, it's boring you doing that to me. Do you know what I mean? But he seemed to like think it was really amazing or something. I'm like, whatever. Okay, so Minky's story. Minky's in chat, and this is 5 Mark 2 end story, or at least I hope he's still in chat. Because I did say I was reading his story out. So, when did you first discover you are asexual? I found out I am asexual on the 15th of January 2015. So I interviewed Minky, also known as 5 Mark 2N. Oh, you're still here. Yay! That's great. So I interviewed Minky, otherwise known as 5 Mark 2N, at the beginning of this year, January. So do check out that interview I did with him. So I found out I'm asexual on the 15th of January 2015, says Minky, 5 Mark 2N in here, when I was 21 years old. However, I somewhat knew and found it a little funny, actually, that I wasn't as interested in sex growing up, while others at least made themselves out to be. How did you discover you were asexual? I don't actually remember what threw me in the direction of asexuality, discovering it, but I remember doing a good amount of research on it and thinking about it on the way home from college that day before deciding that I am, at least currently, asexual. And Minky still identifies as asexual to this day, but more aromantic than romantic. So yes, if you want to say anything more about that, Minky, you're welcome to. But yeah, on here in the book, he identifies currently as an aromantic asexual. However, I'm sort of on the edge of aromantic and heteroromantic. And when I interviewed him this year, he said aromantic. So yes, if you want to share anything more, but I think I've covered it, because, do you know what I mean? I think it's interesting that he already knew that he wasn't interested in sex growing up, while others at least made themselves out to be. I think that's a very important point, that people, whoever they are, usually make themselves out to be interested in sex, even if they're not, because society kind of pressures people into thinking that everyone should be interested in sex. I don't even know where that came from. Do you know what I mean? When you look at it, like, where did all this ideology come from? Why did someone put it in the people's heads and program people to think everyone should be having sex and it's natural? Where did that even come from? That had to have come from a personal people years ago for it to be passed down from generation to generation. But with the advent of AI now and AI relationships, that's going to completely change the landscape of relationships, which is going to be much better for asexuals, because finally people are going to understand that you can have a relationship that's very loving, caring and committed without sex being part of it. So I think that's a very good thing about AI relationships. There's negatives and there's positives, and that's a very positive thing, you know, that more and more people are going to be having relationships without sex. But can they translate that to asexuality? Can they understand that's what asexuals have been doing for years? Do you know what I mean? Can they think like that, or will they just completely try and and they completely try and kind of cut themselves off from that reality, saying, well, I'm not the same as that because I'm having a non-sexual relationship with AI. It's not the same as having a non-sexual relationship with a human because a human's got genitalia. It's like, it's not really different, is it? Just because we got genitalia doesn't mean to say you have to use it. I'm always quite blunt on this channel. So if you're new to this channel, you're not used to blunt, direct talk, then yeah, you might find me a bit like, whoa, she's a bit out there, but it's all great, isn't it? So Claire Evelyn's story. When did you first discover you're asexual? I would really call it a discovery. I was always different for as long as I can remember. I was about 14. So people who are teenagers can realize they're asexual. I have quite a few people coming up to me going, can you realize, or know that you're asexual from a young age? And I'm like, yes, you can. People do know from a very young age that they're asexual. They know that something's different. Not everyone realizes that, but there are people that do realize it. They realize that they're just not interested in what their friends are talking about. Like who's getting off with who's having sex with who's touching each other up and all that lot, or whatever they talk about these days. Do you know what I mean? They realize that they're not interested in that. They're different to that, and they're not interested in it at all. Minky, ironically, I need to be right back a bit now. Sorry, I'll still be here watching though. Okay. Yes. So Minky's heard his story now. He's like chilling out in the background. So yeah. So how did Claire Evelyn, discover she's asexual? Well, they're asexual. I shouldn't gender specify, should I? When I was 14, the people in my peer group dated and discussed boys that they were interested in. Sex became an inside joke that I didn't get. I went along with everything, making up as I went, thinking that eventually I would understand. I knew that I simply wasn't interested in men. I just wasn't interested was the best way to describe it. It was only later did I discover others that felt similar and that there was a word for what I was experiencing, And they identify themselves asexually. Well, they said they don't go for labels. When I asked them, how do you identify asexually? They said, I don't really go for labels. I don't know if I'm following my own personal don't ask and don't tell policy, but over the years, it has become one. So I think that's, if you don't want to label yourself, that's up to you. But I think if you're going to have a relationship and be on dating sites, you should be saying how you identify. I mean, saying you're not labeling yourself is okay if that's your truth, but it's not helpful for people who are looking for a specific type of relationship with a certain type of asexual. If that person's not even saying whether aromantic or romantic, for example, then if someone like me comes along, I mean, I'm not interested in female anyway, but if someone comes along that's looking for a romantic asexual partner, and that person hasn't said whether romantic or non-romantic, or hasn't specified what they're interested in, then that makes it very difficult for people to connect that person or get into a relationship. So I think if you're on asexual dating sites or any dating sites, you need to be very upfront and honest about what you're looking for in a relationship and not labeling yourself. I get that some people just don't want that, but you need to face what you actually are, face yourself in your entirety and understand yourself in a deep, profound way so that you're able to translate what you need and what people can expect from you in a relationship. By not labeling yourself, I understand you're not tying yourself down to anything, but also it can cause confusion for the recipient that they don't understand what you're about. Like, do you experience sexual attraction and grey asexual, or do you not experience sexual attraction? Are you romantic or non-romantic? What gender are you looking for? All this type of thing, So labels are there to help guide others towards what's right for them, not just about putting labels on yourself, if you know what I mean. Anyway, Waywalker's story. When did you first discover you were asexual? I was 36 years old and in the middle of a sexual relationship. I was also at university at the time getting my undergraduate degree, Bachelor's of Arts. How did you discover you're asexual? In the middle of things, sex, I think they're talking about. I realized I had never liked this activity. I did it to shut people up, endured it so I wouldn't be shamed for not giving my man what he needed, etc. We talked about that earlier. that it's really horrible when people say, oh, you're sex starving your guy or something. It's like, a guy doesn't have to be with an asexual person in a relationship. No one's forcing them to be, in a relationship. But if an asexual person has sex when they don't want it, that's abuse. If a sexual person doesn't have sex when they want it, it's not abuse. It's just they're not getting their needs met, in which case there needs to be open, honest communication. If you can't meet each other's needs, then you need to part ways, right? But there's no abuse involved if a sexual person, is not getting sex because the asexual is genuinely sex repulsed. Obviously, some people control other people by refraining and holding back sex. Asexuals are people who genuinely have no desire, interest, or attraction sexually, right? If they're pure asexual. But there is a spectrum. Some are great asexuals who might experience sexual attraction under limited, very specific circumstances. But I understand there are people that purposely hold sex back from someone to control or manipulate them. That's not what asexuals do. And I mean, I can't say that's what no asexuals do, because I don't know every asexual person. And just like there's people with bad intentions in one sexuality, there is in another as well. But asexuals who come in from a place of they don't experience sexual attraction, they're sex repulsed for themselves, they're not interested in sex, they're not withholding it because they're doing something bad to a person, they just don't want it and need it and don't feel that way about it, and so they're not going, if they don't do it, it's good because they're not going to abuse themselves by forcing themselves to do something they don't want to do. I hope this is making sense, but if you've got any questions, pop them in chat or in comments. So in the middle of things, I realized I had never liked this activity. I did it to shut people up, endured it so I wouldn't be shamed for not giving my man what he needed. But yes, zero interest. Body works properly and all. No pain, but no desire to be doing it. When I reflected, I mostly used sexy times to mentally organize my next art or writing project, figure out my priority items for the next day's office work, that sort of thing. So yeah, some asexuals, if they do have sex, they can be very detached from it and their mind can wander off into other things because they're not really interested in that. They're just at another place of their mind because it's not interesting or exciting for them. It's just the thing they're doing. In this case, this person was like tolerating it for their partner and giving the partner what they were expecting, not what the asexual actually needed or wanted or was that interested in. So it's good they didn't have pain. I have had pain before with sex some of the time, in the past. But I'm just really not interested in sex. If I want to have sex, I would still go ahead and have it. I guess there's ways around that, but I'm just not interested in sex. So I the reason why was okay with that time with my last long-term ex is because he was really nice to me during that time, but it was abusive in other ways. So that when I had sex with him and those sexy times with him, he was really kind, caring guy. This is my long-term ex I'm talking about, not my short-term ex last year. My long-term ex, I haven't had sex since 2011. This is my long-term ex I'm talking about. So, I used to like the time with him sexually, not because of the sex itself, but because he was a different person, a nice, kind, caring person that I originally fell in love with before he became horrible, abusive person towards me. But he wasn't abusive sexually, which I'm really grateful for. It's just very weird. It was like it's two completely different people. Very, very strange being with someone like that. So anyway, Darcy's story. When did you first discover you're asexual and how did you discover you're asexual? I've always known something was a little different when it came to sex with me. As a kid, this is an Asexual Perspectives book. If you're new to this channel or don't know what I'm reading from, you can get this on Amazon. So I'll carry on, right? So they've always known something is a little different when it came to sex. As a kid, I had so many crushes, like most kids do. I've never had a crush in my life. But as I matured, I was always stuck in crush mode. I liked some people, but I never really thought things past kissing. Sexuality had never offended me, but I was always uncomfortable when it came to including my own body. I didn't realize until I was about 25 that there was a name for I didn't realize until I was about 25 that there was a name for it and it was just normal. this is a very important point to make, because asexuality is normal for some people. It's normal for some people in this world to not want, like, or need sex and not get the urge for it or desire for it. It's normal. And I hate it when people go, oh, you're not normal. It's like, well, if you are talking about the majority of the population, I'm not normal compared to the majority of the population, but it's still normal for a minority part of the population to be asexual. That's perfectly normal. And we need to normalize asexuality, because there's no reason for people to be uncomfortable or fear it. I mean, why are people uncomfortable and fearful about people not wanting or needing or liking sex for the asexuals that don't do that? Do you know what I mean? Why? I mean, people should feel more comfortable around us, because there's no chance we're going to pounce on them and have sex against their will and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And make them feel sexually uncomfortable, because we're not like that. Do you know what I mean? So they should be seen as a positive. So we have our own innate good qualities as well. Do you know what I mean? Because we can see things from different perspectives that might cloud the judgment of those who do experience sexual attraction, for example. So Darcy discovered they're asexual this way. I dated a fair amount as a teen and less as an adult. I tried sex, but it never felt like anything to me. I never felt any emotional attachment, really. But more than that, it just never felt much physically to me. I can feel things, but I also feel sort of detached. I joined tumblr.com back in 2013, and that's how I was exposed to the term asexual and the information there. That's when I started identifying as asexual. So for me, interestingly, when I had sex years ago, I felt everything. My mind did wander off, but I did feel everything. I wasn't numb. I wasn't like not experiencing it. I was still in the moment with the person I was doing that with, but my mind would wander off, like looking at TV, for example. Or start thinking about other things and feel guilty that I was thinking about other things. Do you know what I mean? I might start thinking, like, what TV program I'm going to watch lately. I don't watch TV now. I do have Disney Plus, but I don't watch TV. And so my mind used to start wandering off and stuff like that, thinking, what am I going to watch, like, on TV later and stuff like that? Or I might think of a program I've already seen or something. So it might think about something else. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so I did used to feel guilty about that, because it was hard for me to focus and mentally. Even though I was there in the feeling, mentally it was hard for me to focus. But you might notice when I've been talking tonight, because I'm talking at very late in the morning, that I'm not so, my attention sometimes is a little bit waning, because I sometimes have forgotten a couple of times what I was talking about in the stream, but then I've remembered it again. But I do have anxiety, which is it does impair your, I've got anxiety, fibromyalgia and CPTSD. And they do actually impair cognitive functioning. So they can make it difficult to process things in real time quickly. Sometimes that's a trait, but you know, I'm doing good because I remembered it after all. And we're having a conversation, aren't we? When you're talking to a friend, sometimes a friend does forget something and they're like, oh yeah, I've remembered now. So I think that's important to keep that like family friendly atmosphere on this channel. I say family friendly. Some people might think Asexualise is not family friendly. Friendly, friends here, right? Community friendship. That's what I'm talking about. Right, a family of community friendship. It's like having one big family here. Do you get my meaning? We understand each other? Lovely. Right, South American Anonymous' story. When did you first discover you were asexual? When I was around 13 to 16. I used to think being genderless, asexual, and androgyne, I don't know how to pronounce it, it's like androgynous, but it's like androgyne, I think that's how you pronounce it, were the same thing. How did you discover you were asexual? I never felt any sexual desire towards any crush or icon I ever had, but I never really questioned it. I started questioning my gender, and I found out I was not only asexual but repulsed by sex. I always found sex gross. I always found genitals disgusting. I find my genitals disgusting. I always feel awkward when people talk about sex near me or tried to seduce me in that way. Yeah. I'm not really interested in genitals either. I do not think genitalia is very interesting or good looking. I honestly do not understand what the appeal is with porn in that way. I don't get it. I'm like, why are you interested in genitalia? Why? It just doesn't compute to me. Do you know what I mean? I don't think the genitalia looks nice. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm interested in guys, and it just looks like, like wizened potatoes with a sausage in between or something. Oh my God. I can't even believe I'm saying that. I'm like, oh my God, it's just too much information, isn't it, really? But you know what I mean? I'm not just not really into it. If I have to look at a genitalia, I'd prefer to look at guys because I am interested romantically and aesthetically with in guys. And I've had sex in the past. But when I was in my short-term last relationship, I didn't want to see that. He would want to be just naked with me, and I'm like, I'm just looking the other way. If you go, I'm going to look at that from your waist up part of your body. I don't want to see that. I'm like, if you want to walk around like that, I'm just not going to look. I'm going to look up, or I'm going to look the other way because I'm not interested in it. Eventually, he's like, oh, it's making you uncomfortable. I'll cover that up. I'm like, yeah, that's fine if you want to do it. I didn't want to. So it was difficult because I didn't want him to feel like, because he was heterosexual, not asexual. I didn't want him to feel like he's giving up his freedom that way, because some heterosexuals, they love walking around naked and being in bed naked and all the rest of it. I'm not interested in that. I don't mind his chest being naked. I'm quite happy to kiss a naked chest, but I'm not interested in genitalia whatsoever. I don't need to see that. I'm not interested in looking at it. I'd rather not look at it. And so, yeah, it was very interesting. But I felt, because it was a long time since I've actually been in a relationship with a heterosexual, so it was kind of interesting and in that way. But it was like, I think previously it was 2019 when I was in a short-term, again, heterosexual relationship. So it's like 5 years prior. And do you know what I mean? Every heterosexual is different anyway, but I end up attracting the really highly sexual guys. But I was just like, I don't want to see that. I'd even be okay with touching it, overseeing it, not looking at it if he wants me to touch. But I'm like, well, with that particular person, not with the other person. But I'm like, if you really want me to touch, fine, but I'm just not interested in. And that was only if I felt comfortable enough to do that. I'm really not interested in looking at it. I just don't want to see it. So you have to I'm not seeing it even if I'm touching that thing. And I'm not, I'm not advertising I'm into touching even, because I didn't even think I would be able to touch a thing like that ever again. But I'm like, if you really want me to do that, fine, but I'm not interested in looking at it. I just don't want to see it. Put the bed covers over you or something. I'm not interested, put pants on. But it's hard because I don't want heterosexuals to feel they can't have their freedom with me. But at the same time, I need to respect my own boundaries and what I'm comfortable with. And I'm like, I'm just not gonna look. I'm just not interested. I'm so asexual. It's just I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean? And even if I do touching, it was probably nowhere near as much as touching he would have loved. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm just like, I can't even believe I was able to do that. I never thought I'd touch a male anatomy ever again, because I'm really sex repulsed these days. But I'm like, okay, I'm not actually having sex with you if you really want me to do that. But I didn't do that for a while at first as well. But I'm like, whatever. But I do kind of like it when a heterosexual guy goes, do what you like to me, because I'm fine with everything. Because that means if I do happen to touch, even by accident, with the guy before that years ago, in 2019, I did touch by accident because I was just kissing him and I happened to touch that bit very by accident. And I was really apologetic, going, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Oh my God. So I got really worried about it. Well, the last guy was really liking that type of thing, but I'm like, just don't show me. I'm not interested. So when you're with a heterosexual and you're asexual, it's hard because you kind of feel like you need to do some compromising or some things they might like if you're okay with it and you don't actually mind it. I shocked myself that I didn't mind doing that, but it's just I don't want to see it. You know what I mean? So I think when if you're an asexual person who's having a relationship with a sexual person, you need to understand your own boundaries, what you like, you dislike. But you might find with what you don't like with one heterosexual, what can I say? You're knowing what you like and don't like with one heterosexual, but you might feel a bit differently with another heterosexual. You might be willing to do more touching or less touching with another heterosexual. depends on, I think, how they take it, how they act, whether they're pushing you to do that or whether they're leaving you to be free to do that. What, you know, how they react to it, how you feel about it, if you're okay or if you're indifferent, if you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't mind doing this a bit. Do you know what I mean? I think you've just got to really assess your own boundaries, your own feelings, your own emotions, and decide what's best for you. But I think it's hard when you've not been in a relationship for a long time, if you're asexual, and then all of a sudden you're in a relationship with a heterosexual. Like, how do you navigate that? So I think it's really important to have open, honest communication. There was no way I was going to have sex with that guy. It was like completely off the table, and he knew that. I'm like, don't touch this. I don't like this bit being touched and stuff like that. Although he wanted to try one thing like that, and I let him try a bit, and I'm like, I don't want that ever again. Just don't do that. I've already said I didn't think I like that, but I let him try one thing, and it's like, I don't like it. I really don't. It's like, don't do that again. And that's hard for a heterosexual, if you allow them to try one thing out in you just to test out if you definitely don't like it or don't want it. But they have to know that if you try something with them like once or whatever, you might never do that again, because if you're genuinely not interested, but you're like, okay, I'll give it a go, and then you're like, no, I'm still not interested in it, then they need to know about that. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's important to only do what you feel comfortable with sexually. Do you know what I mean? And like, you know, like some people might not mind like being touched through their clothes and stuff like that, but they don't take their clothes off and they don't show their body to their partner. And sometimes you might be all right doing that with certain parts of your body, but not others. Do you know what I mean? That type of thing. So I think it's better to assess yourself and how you feel about any person you're in a relationship with. But I also think it's important to know your main boundaries. Like, I know, like, I'm not having sex with a guy. I really don't like being touched on my top half, my breast, basically. I don't like being touched down below at the front bit either. Bum, I can be okay with some bits of it sometimes, which is weird. Sometimes I'm like, no, I don't like that at all. And other times I'm like, okay, well, when they're actually doing that, I don't really mind it that much. Sometimes bits of it, you know, it's okay sometimes, like the top bit of it, for example, but start reaching further down, I really don't like it. So I think it's really important to assess yourself, because people can change in relationships. People can change in how they feel sexually, even within this asexual spectrum. You know, they can change, and obviously every person's different, because every person interacts with you differently and brings different energy to the table. They bring different ways of doing things to the table. They bring different mannerisms and perspectives. They bring different feelings up within you. Do you know what I mean? And so I think you have to treat every relationship as different. Every relationship is different. You might surprise yourself and end up doing something you didn't expect, which is nothing to be ashamed of. If you decide that you want to have sex even again, and maybe you haven't had it for years, and you're like, well, I've got this person now and I don't mind doing that. Sorry about the noise outside, by the way. I live in an area that's quite built up, and there's some people shout sometimes. So it's a student. There's students like either side of me, actually, you know, this building. So yeah, what I was saying is, like, do what feels best to you and right to you, right? There is no right or wrong. Even if you're an asexual person who decides later on down the line you do want to try sex, that's perfectly fine. If you're a person who's had sex in the past and you're asexual, you know, and you never want sex again in your life, that's also fine. I want you to know that either is fine. It's your life and it's your body, and it's up to you to define what you want and what you don't want. But you might want something with someone you don't want with someone else, and that doesn't necessarily mean to say it's got anything to do with your sexual orientation. It's how you specifically feel about that person, how that person makes you feel safe and comfortable and supported. If you feel safe, comfortable and supported by someone, like, they really don't care less whether they have sex with you or not, and they really don't care less if they're doing sexual acts with you or not. They're not bothered one way or the other. Maybe if it feels less pressurizing, maybe you wouldn't want to try a bit of sexual stuff, because, like, this person's totally non-pressurizing. They don't care if I do it or not. They're still going to love me anyway. I might try something once, not like it. It's an experience we can have together, and that's fine. Or I might decide it's okay, or part of it's okay and not the other part, you know? So I think go by the energy of the other person, the mannerisms of the other person, how you feel with your energy with them, how you feel in their company, how they make you feel when they're being physically affectionate. Do they push? I personally think it was hard in the last short-term relationship, because, like, I would like a lot of kissing, and then I would go more to kissing his chest, for example, but then he got very turned on by that because he's heterosexual. but then it became too sexual. Like, obviously, when a heterosexual is experiencing sexual attraction, arousal, their body works completely differently to mine, because I'm not sexually attracted. I can experience arousal, but it's not the same thing, right? And when they experience it, a guy's body often quivers and shakes and does weird stuff like that, and noises. And so, do you know what I mean? That that person ended up getting in that zone, right? And then for me personally, as an asexual person, it's too sexual for me. I'm like thinking, oh my God, this is just spiraling for me into too much sexual movement and behavior, right? They can't help what they're doing because they find it sexually stimulating. That's just a part of their biology and their sexual makeup, which I'm not the same as them. And so I can't punish them and think, oh, you shouldn't be punishing anyone in a relationship. I can't like punish them and think, oh, it's their fault they're doing that. It's the natural response they're doing that. And if they find me sexually attractive, I'm not having a problem with that. I don't want to be having sex with them, but I don't have a problem with them being sexually attracted to me. But obviously there's consequences of them experiencing arousal for me and with me and being sexually attracted to me. And so for me, that became, I should say, very overwhelming. And it's like, I really want to just get back to kissing now, because this body movement, this way you are in this moment, which is fine because they're heterosexual. I understand what's going on with them physiologically and biologically. It's just too much for me. And I just want to get back to the kissing. And the danger is of being with a heterosexual, once they like that feeling of arousal and excitement and everything, they want more of that. And I end up wanting more kissing. And then we end up being further apart in our wants, desires, and needs, if you know what I mean. So I'm being very honest with you, because, these live streams are designed for us to have, conversational style conversations about asexuality and the things that matter to asexuals, the things that impact us, the things that in fact impact our relationships, our dating, our lives. And it's important we talk openly and honestly about these things. I think I share a lot more than a lot of people do about intimacy and sexual relationships and relationships between asexuals and sexuals. But I'm doing it to help you, because I know there are asexuals out there that have relationships with sexuals. And some of them are scared. They don't know how to navigate that. Some of them are unsure or they're confused. So I'm trying to provide clarity as much as possible. This is why I'm sharing personal stuff. It's not easy necessarily sharing personal stuff, but I'm like, how much do I share? I'm like, well, that's past. It's gone now. It was over a year ago I was with that guy, and if it helps someone, it helps someone. I have no shame. Like, I didn't expect to touch his whatever, right? I didn't expect that to ever happen, because I swore, like, I didn't think I'd ever want that again, right? But I was okay doing it. I was surprised myself. The previous guy was heterosexual. I was in a short-term relationship with, 5 years prior to that, no, I felt bad by touching it by accident, because I just ended up brushing my hand across it when I was like kissing the guy and moving, like sexual behavior but no sexual attraction, basically. So do you know what I mean? I'm sharing it with you to help you, not because you have to do what I'm saying or have to agree with it, but I'm just saying, like, treat every person individually. Like the next guy that comes along, I probably will like be less active with him in that way, because it's like, I really, like, through having relationships with people, that's really the only way you can discover what you like, want, and need fully. You can have a really good idea, or kind of know your own mind in the extent that you have knowledge of what you like and don't like. But you sometimes find that in a connection you behave differently or respond differently and think differently. I'm not saying that you're going to change your mind, right? That's not what I'm saying. So an asexual who's sexual pulse, never had sex, never interested in it, I'm not saying you're going to change your mind just by a person coming along. And I definitely don't believe you haven't met the right person yet, and that's why you're like that. That's not what I'm saying. I just want to make that perfectly clear in case anyone's misinterpreting my words. That's not what I mean. What I mean to say is when you're having a relationship, for example, an asexual with sexual person, you might end up being more comfortable with some things than you didn't think, or more uncomfortable with certain things you didn't realize. I become more uncomfortable over the years because I was a person who used to have sex and I was okay with it. I wasn't like repulsed like I am now. I was okay with it. I was okay having it. I got bored with it and I'd rather do other things, but I was okay having it. I wasn't like I am now, like, oh, I really don't want sex. I'm really repulsed by it. Ugh. Do you know what I mean? So I've changed in that way. Could I ever change back? I don't see it happening. I definitely don't think I'd ever be fully like I was before. But, you know, do I ever say never? I don't think it's wise to say completely never, ever, ever, ever. I think it's wise to say, as far as I know, I won't ever do that again. But do you know what I mean? Who knows? Like, I don't want to tie myself down to saying never, ever, ever. I do say never, ever, ever as far as I'm aware, right? Because I want to make that clear to all sexual guys. I'm not interested in sex. But I think, you know, you have to kind of sometimes, if you want to, leave some wiggle room for yourself. And I think you have to be okay if you change about your behavior, because I have got sexual behavior where I like to kiss. If I was with a heterosexual for 5 years, for example, you know, like, would there be any difference to how I am now? Who knows, right? I don't think that I would have sex again, but I know I'm capable of doing that, and I know how to do that, right? But I can't see me doing that ever again, because I'm too repulsed by it. And like I said, just by kissing a guy and then him, you know, like him getting more sexually excited, if you like, after a while, that itself becomes too overwhelming, overpowering for me. I'm just like feeling so uncomfortable, just thinking, I just want the kissing now. But the moment you start having a relationship with a heterosexual and them experiencing that real excitement, they kind of get addicted to it and want it more and more. So they kind of go away from the parts that you might love about the asexual components of the relationship, if you like, the bits where you're not having that and you're just having, for example, me just having the kissing, which I adore, right? Going away from that and going into more sexual territory, and then it just feels not good for me. It's like, I don't actually want the sex. I don't want it to get too sexual. It becomes overwhelming and overpowering because I'm sex repulsed. I just want the kissing. And then it's harder for the sexual person to focus so much on the kissing, because they're then used to me like leaving the lips and kissing their chest, for example, and getting more excited and turned on by the chest. Does that make sense? Because that often turns guys on. But people don't realize that. So because obviously the society dictates that, oh, men like kiss women's chests and they can suck whatever there. But actually, guys, a lot of the time, not every guy, but some guys really like that type of thing done to them, but it's not widely known. And so, you know, if you're an asexual, doesn't mind kissing and licking and sucking whatever of a guy's chest, then, you know, he might get very sexually turned on by that, and that might satisfy him and his sexual needs. Do you know what I mean? In some ways, and you're okay doing that because you're like, well, it's genitalia, it's not involved, and you know, like I said, some people don't like genitalia, but they're all right doing other things. So do you know what I mean? You have to think like through like what would be good and what would be not good. So yeah, so Samantha G story, have I read this? I'm not sure. I don't think I have. But anyway, they discovered they're asexual, not 18 years old. I always knew asexuality as a sexual orientation existed, but I never knew what it actually was until one day I got curious as to what asexuality is, and I Googled it. Needless to say, I was shocked that it actually fitted me. I think I've just read that, didn't I, before? But I wanted to take time to read that again, because some people are absolutely shocked to discover they're asexual. Some people come across asexuality and they're like, oh, that fits me. You know what I mean? And they're like, I've always wanted a term for how I'm feeling, and now I've got something. And other people come across it and they're like completely oblivious to ever any knowledge of asexuality, but ever even thinking that way about themselves, and they're like completely shocked that it is them. Like, I thought I was heterosexual for years. I was conditioned to believe I was heterosexual. It wasn't my parents' fault. They didn't know any different. And you know, I thought I'm heterosexual, and so I behaved accordingly to asexual no, sorry, I said asexual programming then, didn't I? I meant I behaved according to sexual programming. Get it right, sexual programming. But actually, I am asexual. So I was conditioned to believe about being heterosexual that I'm not, and that in a relationship you give a guy what he wants. Kind of like my family's kind of old school like that, like, you know, men expect sex in relationships and stuff like that. But my mum doesn't talk about sex. She's always like, school will teach you that. So my parents are very conservative. They don't talk about sex usually, don't have those type of discussions. So yeah, there's not much sex education in school. There wasn't, at least when I was at school, much sex education. It was just a stupid video, which was in a biology class, of some woman dressed up as an egg and some guy dressed up as a sperm coming towards each other. And I always remember it. It was so like, it was kind of funny, but it was like grotesque at the same time, if you know what I mean. It's like hilarious, like, oh my God. But it's like, this is seriously our education, was the funny part, as in a kind of a bit of sarcasm there. Like, seriously, you're being serious. This is my only sex education. But it was so funny in the way they were doing it, but it was also so horrible. It's like, oh my God, if you reduced sex to this. And it's like, she was going, one day my sperm will come. One day my sperm will come. And while this guy, dressed as a sperm was coming towards her, I'm thinking, oh my God, yeah, it's so gross. And it's like, why is that the only sex education? That's pathetic. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't very helpful at all. And it's like a woman's waiting for a guy to do that to her. It's like, why would a girl or woman actually wait for a guy to do that? Like, she's got nothing better to do with her life. It's just horrible. I didn't like it. I find it funny looking back, as in, oh my God, funny as in not funny as in, oh, that's really funny. Funny as in like, oh my God, I can't believe you just gave me that as a sex education. That's just ridiculous. But I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I behaved accordingly. I had sex in the past, probably not as much as other people have had it. One guy, after 3 weeks of relationship, I got so bored with the sex, I had to end the relationship. So he was very hot aesthetically. He's beautiful looking aesthetically, with his face, and he was foreign, and he was the look I liked, and he was great at cooking for me at that time, but I couldn't stand the sex. I was just so bored out of my brain. It was painful. I wasn't that. He was just stick it in type of guy, and it was just boring, so boring. I'm like, I just can't be doing this anymore. So after 3 weeks, I ended the relationship, and his mate came on the phone going, I taught him everything he knows about sex. I'm like, well, you didn't do a very good job, did you? And then he started calling me names, horrible names. And then that was the end of the call. Put the phone down on him. I had a friend with me at the time. And it was just horrible. I'm like, well, he didn't do a very good job. If he just thinks like sticking a woman's a good job of sex, it's ridiculous. Like, because I have, like experienced sexually, even though I'm asexual and I'm sexual pulse now, I know that that's not good. So unfortunately, it seems like what quite a lot of guys do, But in my last long-term sexual relationship, long-term, the guy's very good at sex, actually, even though I would rather have been doing other stuff. But that's because he was good at foreplay and catering to my needs and stuff. So some asexuals, they love foreplay without the actual sexual intercourse itself. Some asexuals like touching, others just don't even like being touched at all. They're touch averse. So I think it's really important that if you're listening to this now, that you do actually talk to the person themselves who is asexual and get to understand their needs and everything. And likewise, as we are asexuals, if we consider going to relationships or relationship with another person who's not asexual, then we need to consider the heterosexuals' needs as well. Like, can they genuinely live without sex if we're sex repulsed? Or do they want some sexual acts and stuff? And if so, do you want to do that or not? If you don't, then it's not going to work, is it? Do you know what I mean? So it's fine to not get into any relationship and be single and be on your own forever if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. I hate it when people come across my channel. It's like, oh, well, you can't have a relationship then. One is there's nothing to stop an asexual person having a relationship just because they're asexual and don't want sex, because not everyone wants, needs, and likes sex in a relationship, especially other asexuals, for example. And I know asexuals who are in relationships with other asexuals and married even. All right. With the advent of AI, more and more people are out having non-sexual relationships anyway. So it's a time for asexuals to shine. We've always been able to have love and affection relationships, or just even love relationships and special relationship connections without the sex, which I think is a beautiful thing. And hopefully with the advent of AI and how it's going to revolutionize relationships, it's already doing so, then asexuality is going to be deeper understood, because they're going to know that asexuality is a real thing, that loving, caring, committed relationships without sex really exist, and it's perfectly fine to have love without sex. It's the norm for some people, and it looks like it's going to become more and more the norm as people are getting more despondent with internet dating and in-person dating. They're going to turn more and more towards AI. Do you know what I mean? This is time for asexuals to shine. It's our time, baby. Our time, because we're already used to non-sexual relationships. It's like what the world is just going to get used to. We're already used to for years. It's like we're made for the future. Do you know what I mean? Asexuality is kind of like the future, I think. in terms of like we understand non-sexual relationships on a deep level. So people should actually be looking to us for advice on how to navigate that. Do you know what I mean? I am writing this book, How to Date an AI Bot book, build relationships with AI companions confidently and safely. So I am working on this amongst other things on my list. And I hope you enjoyed this live stream. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode. If you have not already got a copy of Asexual Perspectives, what are you waiting for? Go and get a copy of Asexual Perspectives right now on Amazon. So you type in Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, and this is the subtitle, Love, Life and Sex, A Celebration of Asexual Diversity. My name's Sandra Bellamy. You've been an amazing audience. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're interested in romantic relationships, Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual is also on Amazon. These are both best-selling books, by the way. So both Asexual best-selling books. So go and grab a copy of these now. And I'll see you soon next video live stream. Make sure your notifications are turned on so you never miss an episode after you subscribed. And thank you, Minky, for being in chat. Thank you so much to Heather. And thank you to Astronomata, the cycling ace. I really appreciate you a lot and love you. Take care. Stay ace. And like I said, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon. Give this video a thumbs up. Lots of love. Bye. Take care. See you soon.